morning, and welcome to the Minnesota Vikings facility for a Tuesday of radio play, courtesy of Soukup and Soukup.com. I'm Paul Allen. Nordo produces on site, and Maxwell Fuller guides the great ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN and the 651 Carpets Plus studios. Good morning. Head coach Kevin O'Connell joins at 11 o'clock per usual, and we happen to be quite excited for that. Now, one thing I forgot to share with the audience and share with Mad Producer yesterday was Saturday night in Chicago. I was 50 yards from a 19-year-old girl getting shot on the streets of Chicago. Christmas market. There was a Christmas market near our hotel. And I'm sipping warm sangria, looking for a cool battery-powered snow globe of some sort for my house. And I found Frosty in a phone booth with snow fluttering through the metaphorical air. So I was good. And then, about ready to head back to the hotel, bang, 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 bang. I hear that.
So a total of 4 rounds?
Bang, 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 bang. The fourth one got me because I didn't know it was gunshots. I mean, I'm 50 yards away from it, and the fourth one, that's the one that struck a nerve. And the fourth gunshot, I mean, seriously, you just envision it and you think, bam, bam, bam. All right, well, what didn't you get? Bam. And then you learn that a 19-year-old young lady had to go to the hospital and was in critical condition as of Sunday. I believe she's still in there now. But I was 50 yards from that, man. And seeing a mass of humanity come streaming out of a Macy's store, screaming frantically, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this herd like busted. It was like a bunch of cowboys coming through a saloon passage.
Yeah,
back in the Wild Wild West days, just looking for a rumble or something like that. I mean, these people came streaming out of this Macy's, just screaming frantically. That massive humanity certainly left an indelible impression. 50 yards from police. Now, all of a sudden, there were police cars that, because the area was cordoned off. There were streets closed for a parade in that part of Chicago. I think it's called the Loop. And so therefore, there were police cars on the sidewalks going 50 miles per hour. I mean, like within 2 minutes of the bam, 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 bam. Then all of a sudden, woo, you start to hear it. And then you see police cars flying down the sidewalks because there were no roads that they could negotiate.
So this was an area in which a lot of people outside. It is a Saturday night, and this is a blockaded area. This is part of some sort of festival.
Yes, sir.
But and did it occurred outside? It sounds like, but
I
people
don't
coming
know.
out of the Macy's.
Yes, I think it did.
Because it would be difficult for you to hear that if that's taking place, depending upon where it is inside the store.
Right.
But once it rings out, just this wave of people coming at you?
Yeah, I've thought that. I've thought about that because it at the Christmas market, looking for the snow globe, sipping the warm sangria, I thought maybe that they were fireworks or like a tailpipe or something of a car. I didn't recognize exactly what it was until that fourth one. Bam, bam, bam. Bam. And like everybody starts to look around, and then you see these people come out of Macy's, man. I mean, like 8 doors. So there were 4 doors straight in front of me, then let's say 10 yards down.
Yeah. Like
in and out of Macy's, and they just come flying out, man. You got people falling down and stuff like that. And, I'm like, damn. I mean, I thought about it for a second, because I was right next to a police officer who was like, all right, well, you got a decision to make here. You either got to run that way, or you got to go stand between the displays at the Christmas market and get down until everybody says it's copacetic. So I opted to walk back towards the team hotel, which was only like 6 minutes away. And as I was talking to my man, he made it sound like there, and this is like 5-6 minutes after the bam, 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 bam. So he had been on his walkie-talkie and stuff like that. And I'm like, where's the perp? Like, who did it? And I think I heard I haven't read the follow-up stories on this, but there was a story like an hour after it happened, then one the next day about this, sadly, about this 19-year-old young lady. But it sounded to me like there was shooter or shooters, and they immediately got on what's known as the blue line. So then I start thinking a little bit, all right, well, I mean, what happened? Is somebody trying to rob somebody? Is it a drug deal gone bad? Were they trying to rob Macy's? Maybe get into the fragrance section and steal some Ralph Lauren for the con and call it a late Christmas gift. And then they knew the timing of the trains. So therefore, because there was a train station right downstairs, right next to Macy's. And I think it was the blue and the red line. And I kind of overheard this, that it seemed like bam, 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 lady down, perps on train, still yet to be found. So it seemed like something was orchestrated here. But I really
nobody's been charged, nobody's been caught, and she was the woman that was shot was seen inside that Macy's looking for help after being shot.
Ooh.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got news on that.
Thank you. So a juvenile, wow, and a 19-year-old was shot. So now I'm like, all right, well, I mean, damn. We're going to beat the Bears tomorrow. Sure would be a shame if I got shot the night before a victory. I'd prefer to be shot the night before a team's going to lose or something like that. I mean, because you just had no idea where anything was coming from because it was frantic and people were running all over the place.
Yeah, that's the tough. I mean, in that spot, you got to feel, I would bet, very isolated, suffocated, in fact, when you don't have information.
Right. And you're right next to it.
The reverberation of the shots themselves kind of creating so much chaos and fear. Yeah, that's just, it's awful to hear that happened.
So it was a strange Saturday night in Chicago. And for those who live in the Chicagoland or live in the city, it was a popular refrain as I was walking back to hear those who live in the city being like, just another Saturday night in Chicago.
Yeah.
Just another Saturday night in Chicago. This is why Billy and Christy and Susie and Johnny moved out to the suburbs. Just another Saturday night in Chicago. And I like Chicago. I like big cities. I mean, this was for yours truly, there one time a year. I mean, this was an isolated situation, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm the mayor of Chicago and I know exactly what's happening, the who, what, where, when, and why every single day. But when I get the privilege to travel with this football team to big cities and you actually get a chance to stay in a big city, I think it's cool. I like walking the streets. I walk the streets every single road trip just to see what's out there. So that's what happened on Saturday. I hadn't really thought much about it until you texted me last night, and I'm like, damn, I forgot to share that yesterday.
Yeah, I wanted to know more about it. I went to high school with somebody who was shot and killed in Chicago. Similarly to how this, I'm assuming she was a bystander. Yeah, busy area a couple of years ago, Nicole, and we weren't. I don't want to frame it up as if we were close. Yeah. In that regard, but I grew up with her, went to high school with her,
and killed.
And somebody texted me, somebody was cruising in, and they just opened fire on a full crowd to get one particular person. I think it may have been gang related, and she took one in the back and died outside a restaurant in Chicago, Humboldt Park area. So I think that's west.
And your mind runs, when things like that happen, and it's human nature to guess and to speculate, just like I did right there. I'm like, all right, somebody trying to rob Macy's. All right. Is it a drug deal gone bad? All right. Is somebody paying a price from something that may have gone down or something that may have transpired? Yeah. And they're trying to hunt somebody down. But I hadn't really thought much about it because it was later at night. And then we played the game the next day, traveled back, did 9 to noon yesterday, got all squared away yesterday. Then you texted me last night and I started thinking about it. And that fourth guy, I'm not going down the PTSD highway because it's not that, but that fourth gunshot, that's the one that I just can't get out of my mind.
Well, you think that just alerted to you that?
Well, it was 5 seconds between three. It was 5 seconds between 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So you just kind of think wow, what led to that fourth one? Bam, bam, bam. And there's somebody trying to run away and they see somebody chasing them. Bam, fourth. Didn't get enough. Bam, fourth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was Saturday night.
I've loved them. I've been to Chicago innumerable times. I mean, countless times. So I've enjoyed all my trips there. There's no doubt about it. Love the sports vibe. I've been, love the Loop and all that. But
the Loop,
just following around from a news and reporting standpoint, they have a significant gun violence problem there, and I don't think that's anything new. And a lot of these guys are going to be emboldened in areas like what you're talking about in that square.
Yeah.
Nobody's armed.
Yeah.
Everyone's just there to go find their snow globe like you're talking about. And so whoever did this, juvenile or otherwise, they're in a spot. They know that they have that advantage in that environment. It's sad.
I mean, in 58 years, I've seen a fair amount. That's unique. Some of it ugly, some of it beautiful. I never seen and hopefully never will see again. I mean, no fewer than 200 people flying out of those doors and falling down. I mean, people on top of each other trying to get out of those doors, man. That was crazy.
Scary moment. Hope the young woman's okay.
Indeed. You're listening to 9 to Noon, courtesy of Sukup and Sukup.com. We're at the TCO radio studio at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. And on the old set list today, we have Minnesota Wild coach John Hynes joining around the corner after a 4-1 loss last night to the Winnipeg Jets. And he'll be followed by the columnist Lavelle Neal III. After that, the scribe, and then the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, at 11 o'clock. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Once again, that's courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. And you're listening to 9 to Noon.
Join the Power Trips as Zach Halverson tomorrow at B52 Burgers and Brew in Inver Grove Heights for a Wild Watch Party. Get there at 6 p.m. to watch your Minnesota Wild in action and sign up for your chance to qualify for first-round playoff tickets next year. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Awaiting the arrival of John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild. Squad lost to Winnipeg last night 4-1. Winnipeg has put together a nice little winning streak against the old Minnesota Wild. The games generally are hotly contested, like the Wild's first loss this season, an OTL, an overtime loss to Winnipeg up there earlier in the season. And last night, for those either who attended, listened to it on KFAN or watched it, your Minnesota Wild came out throwing a proverbial kitchen sink at Connor Hellebuck. I think there were 22 shots in the first period. I mean, just absolutely jumping my man. Shifley got caught flat-footed, and Middleton scored on him. I think of the 2 goals the Wild have scored against the Jets this year, I think Jake Middleton has both. But he definitely had the one last night. And it was gut punch central for the Minnesota Wild several times during that game. For instance, Middleton scores. Sky Yuma, everybody's going crazy. The mascot Nordy running up and down the aisles, high-fiving everybody, saying, "Big boy's back," talking about Jake Middleton. But like a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, what? Hey, now it's tied at 1. And it truly was. I was watching the game. I did not attend. It truly was right after the scoring for Minna. Oh, what? And then everybody sits down.
Ooh.
It was the pricking of the proverbial balloon. Then it was 1-1. But then former Wild winger, Nino Niederreiter, scored the second goal of the game. And that eventually would be the game winner. But that whole situation was weird, too. I mean, the terminology and or phrases with that game, that's hockey. Or as the former co-host used to say, that's hockey. Or puck luck definitely was in play on that Niederreiter goal as John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, joins us now. Hey, John, Paul Allen, an early happy Thanksgiving to you, my man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Thanks, bud. And travel safely today to Buffalo. You got Buffalo, then you got Chicago and Nashville over the weekend, off last night, where we were just discussing it a little bit. And I'll start here with you, and thanks for the time. Intense game last night. It was an intense game, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was, I think both teams, right, at this point in the season are playing well, playing connected. I think both teams play very hard, play a structured game, so that in itself makes it an intense rivalry game.
And as you were calling, we were discussing like gut punch central. There were just some gut punches last night. I mean, Scheifele gets caught flat-footed. Middleton scores. And, basically right after the scoring for Minnesota, everybody had to sit down because they tied the game. And that was a little bit of a gut punch. Then Middleton looks like he's going to score, whiffs on it, tries to get the rebound, and they come on an odd man rush. And there's a fight behind Hellebuck. I think Eriksson Ek was involved. So that leads to the odd man rush, and Niederreiter scores the second goal of the game for Winnipeg. So it's during that situation, should there have been a whistle stopping play before Niederreiter scored their second goal?
You know what? I think there possibly could have been a whistle blown, but I also look at the way I see it is you're right. That one I didn't like. I think the managing of that situation by us needs to be better. It's a tight game. It's a 1-1 game. I think we're, felt as though we were outplaying them. We had scoring chances. We were playing the game we needed to. And then, there's that situation we don't manage as well, and then bang, it's in the back of your net. And that's the difference some nights between winning and losing tight games. And to me, that's what I take out of that.
Awesome answer, and thank you for the openness. So, reading between the lines here, I'm thinking that maybe a player or two should have gone back and retreated to help and not join the fracas.
Yeah, I think it's always tough to in the moment. The way I look at it is it's an emotional game, and I think it was guys trying to do the right thing. But now, the next time a situation like that occurs, how can we handle that better? Like, let's take the lesson out of that, because that's what happens in tight games. Is sometimes there's whether it's a misread or a miscue or blown assignment or whatever it is, lots of times in big games, those are the differences. And I think that was a situation we can learn from.
And 22 first period shots, as we said before you came on. You got the Middleton goal. Hellebuck obviously is high end. So when you're peppering him the way you do, including with some really good chances, are there times that you just have to leave a game saying, that's hockey. All right, we got a flight, we got Buffalo, we got Thanksgiving, we got a couple of games at home over the weekend. That's the target at which to shoot in the division. We get them again in a month, but that's hockey. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, especially when you're in, a schedule like we have, not only in the regular season, but particularly this week, right, with all the games and the travel. Is that I think you got to take the lessons out of it. We know we played a good game. We know that their goaltender played really well. We had a couple areas that we have to clean up, but I think when you look at the big picture, if you're playing that style of game and we continue to move on with our process and what we're doing, we're going to win more games than we're going to lose, and we're going to have another crack at it.
And what, just briefly, what are some things that maybe they can do better to beat a team of the caliber of the Jets? I mean, you took an overtime loss earlier in the season. Everything's congested and tightly contested and high end, and clearly two of the better defensive teams in the NHL. However, they keep getting two.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, I think in these games, special teams have to be a major factor for us. Yeah. Obviously they weren't last night. That was the difference in the game as well. And then I think that just when you're playing the way that we were playing and doing the things that we were doing, understanding, just that there's that every play matters, every decision matters. And last night there were a couple decisions that wound up in the back of our net. Now, with that being said, you can't really nitpick either, because if Hellebuck wasn't playing out of his mind, it's probably 4-1 after the first. So it's just learning, just learning how to manage the game in those situations.
John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, 9 to noon. What did the Jets do in the third period to make it hard to come back on them?
Well, they play the right way with the lead. I mean, when you have basically 22 guys all thinking about checking and committed to checking, not worrying about scoring another goal, then they play well. They check hard. They forecheck well. They have 3 guys above the puck. They don't give up odd man rushes. They're committed in their own end. They're taking away, ice at the net front. So, sometimes you have to credit the other team as well of playing well with the lead as a good defensive team, that it's hard to generate offense when you're trying to come from behind against a team that's totally committed to keep the puck out of their net. That's the only thing on their mind.
John, at Buffalo tomorrow and Chicago and Nashville here this weekend. Is it important for the guys to put this one to bed and move on, or is it at a stage of the season where, really it's just still so relatively early in the season, that's just natural, put it to bed, move on, try to beat the Sabres?
Yeah, I think it's all the mindset that we have with our team. I think the messaging you give to them, hey, this was, it was a game. There was more good than bad. We didn't get the end result, but there's another one coming. So, we got to get refocused on Buffalo, and then moving forward this week. There's a lot of hockey this week, so let's get excited to play and move on from it.
Well, lastly, what did you notice with Kaprizov's game after missing the Calgary game?
I thought Kirill looked good. He was. Thought he skated well. He was competitive in battles. I thought that line was really good. They probably deserved more than what they got from a point standpoint. But it was really good to see him back and excited to play and back to his usual competitive stuff.
Thank you for the time, my friend, and we'll chat next week. Best of luck the rest of the week. Okay.
All right. Thanks, PA. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yep, you too. See you, Coach. John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, weekly 9 to noon. Likewise for Lavelle Neal III, columnist for the Star Tribune. He joins us weekly, and he will join us from the Vikings facility when 9 to noon continues on KFAN.
KFAN and the Minnesota Vikings will be live from Shields in Eden Prairie next Tuesday for our annual Toys for Tots broadcast presented by Unreal. We'll be collecting donations for Toys for Tots 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and need your help. You'll have the chance to enter to win great Vikings prizes, all while seeing your favorite shows live. First 50 donations each show will receive an Unreal KFAN winter beanie. KFAN.com keyword toys to get all of the details.
Here comes the columnist, Lavelle Neal III, a columnist for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. Follow him as 9 to noon does, if you would be so kind, at Lavelle Neal via the tweet machine. And Lavelle's appearances on 9 to noon are provided by Allery's Bar and Barbecue, home for free parking and wild shuttles. Good morning, Lavelle. Last up Sunday, Vikings-Bears. You're at the hallowed grounds at the worst press box in the National Football League, chronicling the action.
Oh boy!
And then you wrote about the quarterbacks.
Cramped, bad food.
What? The food situation actually. My intel is that it was dramatically upgraded when Kevin Warren became team president.
If that's the case, then it really had to be bad before he got there. Good Lord!
So, off last week's conversation, what is your intel, or what did you hear about Allery's Sunday, Jim McMahon and Tommy Kramer?
Well, first of all, Allery's was packed for the game, and they came. Someone sent me video of the moment that they entered the bar, and the place just went bananas.
Right.
Jim was walking with an 8 of a cane, but they had a little table set up for him in the back. So him and Kramer went to the back and sat down, and that's where they watched the second half. He signed autographs. They got people sending me pictures of them with Jim. We have a stuffed bear in the corner of the bar with an Alshon Jeffrey jersey on it, and he went over and signed, autographed the jersey. I was like, why would he defame such a jersey? No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But apparently he's a great vibe, and everybody was really thrilled to see him.
That's cool.
It was their brush for greatness.
Yeah, for sure. And so Jim McMahon, I would imagine, had sunglasses. And
no, he did not.
Okay, well, he's explained this before, where he wears shades indoors And people are like, all right, I mean, you're like so cool, you got to wear shades.
Right.
But actually, bright lights, he has an eye condition where bright lights cause him
That's correct.
awful migraines.
Is that concussion related potentially? Anything
That's a great
degenerative
question.
as
That's a
part
great
of
question.
that?
I think he wore sunglasses a lot when he was playing, too.
But even when he was playing in the short stint, and I was just too young to really remember him as a Bear, but as a Viking, he had one of the few at the time, there's more of them now, the shaded or the tinted
shield?
visor.
He was wearing sunglasses when he walked in. I got video of his entrance. So
Right.
he did have sunglasses on when he walked in.
Right, and then there were people back in the day, I mean, specifically 85 Bears, greatest defense in the history of the NFL. During that time, Super Bowl shuffle and all that, people were all over him about wearing these glasses during interviews. And so he came out and he's like, no, I mean, if I look into that light the wrong way, I'm going to have a migraine for a day and a half. So, it's interesting to know that he still does that. So
Well, if you win a Super Bowl in Chicago, you get to wear sunglasses indoors as long as you want, right?
Well, if you're like the third string right guard on the 85 Bears, you're still eating for free in Chicago.
You know, one of many things interesting from the weekend was I was chatting with somebody who works with the Bears, and they asked me, do players on the Vikings, do a lot of players have podcasts? And I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, I don't think anybody does. I mean, like Josh Metellus does this locker room bit where he asks questions and stuff like that, but that's for Vikings.com. But the question was direct, too, from, like, are there players who have their own podcasts and they bring, like, dogs on from around the league and stuff like that? And maybe there are, and I just don't know about it. And then he opened up with like, well, there are like 9 here who have it, and he went through the names and, there are some big names in there. And I think DJ Moore may have just started one or something. That actually, I think, is working on the last nerve of some people within that organization, that some of these players are so gung-ho to get this podcast going, sell the podcast, get your marketing people to do it the right way.
They can't control the message.
Bring in your right. But it's I almost, without reading between the lines here or reading between the lines, thought what I was being told. I'm not going to say it plays into the 4 and 7, but it's more so when they started losing, like more podcasts started popping up. It's almost like, all right, not only do I have an opportunity to control the message here, but I just want to go down this road because even though it's an oversaturated market, everybody's doing it, and I want to do it. And I was just sensed that my man was a little bugged by this.
Well, I mean, it's going on across the league. It's not just Chicago. Maybe it's just not that prevalent here. But for years, everybody has a radio show. Like DJ Moore has a weekly appearance. Jalen Johnson has a weekly appearance on a sports talk show. Yeah. There's a couple of the Bears that just have the radio bit out there. So
yeah, we just had Jonathan Grenard on the Power Trip.
Yeah, so those are moments where they can speak more candidly and possibly say something that the organization wishes they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So when you throw the podcast on the bit and social media like X, Blue Sky, wherever they're on, the messages are flying out there that they can't control.
Right.
And things are pear-shaped in Chicago. No doubt. Pear-shaped with a capital P, capital S. All right.
Well,
so that is just piled on to the bit there.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, because they can do on Tuesdays whatever they want to do within the boundaries of legality. I mean, they're not, I'm not one who's like, okay, you get paid a lot of money, you get this contract, and people count on you. Say it's outside of the quarterback, where I feel like Monday when they leave their facilities at say 11 a.m. or noon, and then they have all that day, that night, all Tuesday, come back Wednesday at 6:30 or 7. I'm not one that believes every single second has to be paid to the detail of what's coming up with the next team. Now, if you're losing, that could be a different story. But I felt somebody was venting because things weren't going the right way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Okay, but I mean, it's the grinder these coaches and players are in, and the requirements on them from the hours they're required to work. It's voluminous, it's deep, it's hard. And it's a lot. So, I mean, if they get some time off and they want to start a podcast and do a podcast and it's not incriminating to the team or disparaging to the team, then let them do it,
No, I mean, they have the right to do it. You can't, you can't tell a player what he can and can't do when he's not at the facility during the season. I know, and there are long days here. You know, I walked through here. I saw breakfast was being served at 6:30. I saw that the weight room was available from 9 to 12. I heard that lunch was available at 2 o'clock. So these are long days here.
Yeah,
lunch at 2. Okay.
And this is an off day. So I mean, the majority of the team won't be here, and I'm completely fine with that. And you're talking about a disaster or embattled with a capital B, or however you phrase that. I look at it a little differently, and the coach and the staff, and maybe the general manager being that same group next year, I can't take that leap. Okay, specifically given Eberflus's road record, they're about ready to lose at Detroit on Thanksgiving morning. I hope they pull an upset, but it's going to be tough. But he's like 4-18 on the road, you know. And then you got some in-game stuff and that fullback situation with Kramer at FedEx. Yeah, so I mean, we both followed it closely. However, in leaving that building and taking in that game and watching that quarterback and watching the effort by some players on defense, they gave everything they had in that game, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was not you're down multiple scores, lay down. And the quarterback sitting on stardom. I mean, he does things naturally that I had to see in person that you just can't get by watching a game on TV. And that would include how he handles interaction on the sideline when TVs are at commercial break. And the Vox box, the vantage point there for being behind the home team's bench is the best in the NFL. So you get to see things you generally don't get to see when traveling to stadiums. And I was just really impressed with how composed Caleb was on the sideline after things didn't go right, how engaged he was with, it wasn't Thomas Brown. I think he was upstairs. Quarterback's coach maybe or whatever. I left being like, hey, you know, I ain't going to say this thing's going to turn around overnight, but as the A topic would go, they got the right guy.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, you know, he's going to be better year 2 than year 1. He's going to be better year 3 than year 2. And you see the point that he's taken off from, you can start to imagine what it could look like 2-3 years down the road.
They're an inch from exploding.
Yeah.
Like, I was super impressed with Caleb.
I mean, that first quarter play where, by the way, Van Ginkel was all over the field in the first half. I think he had 7 tackles in the first half alone. And he was trying to kill Caleb. And Caleb screwed up. He actually admitted that he miscounted the protection on the line, called the wrong protection. He should have realized that Swift was the hot route.
Yeah.
And he screwed it up. So then here comes Van Ginkel. He flees, and he just throws his dart.
Yeah.
In between 2 defenders.
That was unbelievable.
I was like, you got to be kidding me.
The one in front of the Bears bench?
Yeah.
It's one of the 3 best passes I've seen the entire season.
But Brian Flores had the last laugh because the Bears' only possession of overtime when he dropped back 8, and Caleb was like, wait a minute, where's the pressure? He's holding the ball for 7 seconds. I was like, you know, Brian Flores finally gets him in the end.
See, and Van Ginkel just continues to astound me because his days in Miami, I just wasn't super familiar with like what he did. And you can look at the stats and all the defensive touchdowns.
I looked at him during the game. Yeah.
Well, he nearly had number 3 this year. And I thought for sure Van Ginkel was going to get a touchdown in this game. And I said it on our pregame show. And here's why. Because it's everything, as we discussed last week, was short to build Caleb's confidence and get fluidity with the offense and build this thing slowly. I like what Thomas Brown did a lot in the previous game against Green Bay. Well, it's not going to go from short to bombs away, specifically with the unpredictability of a Minnesota Vikings defense. So you knew it was going to be short. And Caleb went to throw a screen right. Van Ginkel had that sucker so sniffed out, and like on a screen, Bursich is like, I've never seen a quarterback have to hitch and pump to get that screen off because somebody jumped in the route.
I remember that play.
You remember the play?
Yeah.
So they're heading.
Yeah, that was early on.
They're heading towards the press box side, and they're back at like the minus 25 or 30. So you would have been looking right at it. Van Ginkel was to the right of Caleb Williams.
Correct.
And Caleb sold it by looking the other way. You know, just like good quarterbacks do. He swung around to loop that thing, I think, to DeAndre Swift, and Van Ginkel, he was going to pick it off and go, and then Caleb stopped. And then Van Ginkel jumped, and then he got it by him. So this Andrew Van Ginkel, man, he's an unbelievably good football player.
I think the key to
NFL All-Pro. this year.
Absolutely. I think the key to it though is that Caleb saw that. That had to have been a conversation into the weekend about how they deploy Andrew Van Ginkel, because you're right, he does sell it and he comes back, but he didn't let it rip. He didn't let it rip like Daniel Jones did early in the season. He didn't let it rip in the way that Aaron Rodgers on the second pick six, where he just thought a guy was supposed to be there and he never saw Van Ginkel exist. Again, I hate to really build up the quarterback of one of my favorite teams, chief rivals. But Caleb, there's something there again. This is just waiting, and maybe it's Thomas Brown figuring out how to run the ball more effectively, how much more confident he was using his feet. But a smart moment there where he didn't let her rip. He let Van Ginkel, and I think Swift ended up getting 7-8 yards out of that play that could have been disastrous had he not been ready for it.
The thing, two things that really stand out about Caleb is that one, he's a really good athlete. The one play he hurtled over the one would be tackler to run for about 8-9 yards, and two, his instincts are off the charts. To be able to pump fake, use his legs to buy more time, get some separation. He does like the stop and go move. To keep defenders honest while he's trying to scramble and buy some time to throw the ball. I just like all that. Oh, by the way, the other thing I saw on the schedule, it said lunch served 1 to 2. Daniel Jones presser 3:30. All right, continue.
What's that mean? But what do you think those limos and SUVs outside are for Daniel Jones?
Well, we can't even park in the media lot right now. So much stuff in there.
Right. So what did you think of our squad seeing it live? What did you think of the Vikings?
It's funny how the narrative when Sam Darnold can change in just 1 week. It's gone from he's turning over the ball too much to, damn, Sam Darnold looked nice. And I give him credit, too, on the day where they paid extra attention to Jefferson and the times they didn't. And Jalen Johnson committed 2 PIs and probably should be called for another. And he found Addison. And I mentioned, I think last week I was here, I put Addison on a big game.
Yeah.
And he did have a great game. And God, Hawkinson was a beast late in the game when he needed it. I was surprised that the Bears scored 27 against Brian Flores' defense. I thought that both teams, special teams coaches, are probably furious at stuff that went on during the game. But I thought, actually, I peeked into your broadcast a little bit too. And because I kept thinking, after Aaron Jones, they had 70 yards rushing after the first quarter. I'm like, man, they should just keep pounding the rock here, get some play action going and pound this. But, KLC just wanted more shots down the field. I mean, he took them and they made them. I mean, the first play of the third quarter, I was like, okay, let's get the run going here. And
that's top 4 pass I've seen this year.
I know.
To Addison by the sideline.
69 yards.
Oh, yeah. How he got it where he did with the velocity with which he threw it over one guy, and the other guy was bearing in on Addison and bounced off him. I mean, he just bounced off Jordan. Yeah. It was an unbelievably beautiful pass.
I peeked into your broadcast with Bursich, and I was listening to one play, and Bursich was like, you got Zach Pickens in the backup defensive tackle right now. They should be running the ball here. And I'm sitting going, I'm thinking the same thing. But you know what? Sam Darnold executed what KLC wanted him to execute, man. This team can run effectively. It could throw. It's a tough out, and you look at the rest of the schedule. How many games are left? 6?
Yeah, we got 6, 4 at home.
One more. I think one game is outdoors the rest of the way. I think the other 5 are indoors.
Yep, at Seattle.
And 4 at home, 4 at the crib, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this looks like 13-4 to me.
And off what you joked about earlier, Kevin O'Connell yesterday and not Sunday, but yesterday being peppered with Daniel Jones questions. And there was an Adam Schefter report Sunday morning, late Saturday, one of the two, where it was like Jones is going to be cut and Baltimore or Minnesota are the chief contenders for Daniel Jones. It was key that he cleared waivers because that means somebody's off the hook for like $11 million, and there's some kind of injury related bit in there where if he gets hurt and he has to miss X amount of games, he gets like $23 million. So nobody wanted any part of that. So he has cleared waivers, and I would imagine, given where he was drafted and the fact that he's mobile and he has a good arm, I would imagine there should be some news from somewhere today involving Daniel Jones. I don't see this thing lingering. What do you think?
I don't think so either, because you're going to want to get him in as soon as possible, get him integrated. I love KLC's response when asked about it, because he said, well, I really can't talk about it, but then proceeded to throw bouquets at Daniel Jones. Yeah. So I thought that was rather interesting and entertaining in its own.
Well, with that quote you're talking about, one of two or three, I mean, he didn't say, he didn't shoot it down at all.
No, he didn't.
I mean, and Kevin's not the type that is going to be like, Daniel Jones will not be wearing a Minnesota Vikings uniform either on the active roster or the practice squad. Let's talk about today's game. He's not like that for yesterday's game. He's not like that in the first place. But the way he framed that question up a little bit, he definitely left doors open.
Yeah, because if it was Belichick, he would have said, we're not going to talk about potential personnel moves.
Right.
It's time to focus on Miami or San Francisco, whoever they're playing. Mm-hmm. That would have been it. KLC spoke for a minute.
Yeah, Paul Charchian brought this up at the Friday Football Feast last Friday, and I was kind of like, Daniel Jones, ew. But then when you learn about the particulars of what goes into not being on the hook for that cash, that's like the first thing that hits me with Daniel Jones is that deal he got a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I don't want any part of that cash. But when you clear waivers, it's a different situation. And then you look forward here to Sam Darnold, most likely won't be the quarterback for this team next year. He'll with what he's doing, I don't believe this team will pay what Darnold will command on the open market. So now what do you have after that? Outside of Nick Mullins or Brett Rippon, the future is clearly J.J. McCarthy. Well, he's off an MCL. So you have a quarterback who's never thrown a pass in a regular season game, off an injury. And then you have somebody in Jones who plays in similar fashion in that they both move, but they're not running quarterbacks, and they both have good arms, and they're both incredibly smart. So when Paul brought it up Friday, I didn't really think deeply about it until he explained it and kind of talked it out a little bit, and I'm like, damn, okay. So good instincts by Paul, and that made a little bit of sense. So we'll see what happens today.
Yeah, I also think, too, if Jones has a choice between Baltimore and Minnesota, he would lean Minnesota, because I think KLC has that type of credibility now. Get a chance to work with someone like him, help his career out. And, you don't know what the future's going to hold. In my mind, I was prepared to think that J.J. McCarthy was going to be the starting quarterback next year.
Next year?
Yes, because it's going to be the second year of his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. You got to start seeing what you got.
Yep.
If there's any trepidation about the knee, though, then you got to think about reinforcements there, So
you just have to look at what they have or what they don't have moving forward, right. and then it would make more sense to me. But you also have to look past things Daniel Jones has done or not done in his time there compared to the staff here, what Darnold is doing. Outside of the turnovers, what Mullins did when he received opportunity. I mean, that's a true quarterback right there. Last year he's throwing for 400, but then he's throwing games away. And finally, what these quarterbacks coming into the draft this year, what they all said about Kevin O'Connell. I mean, Caleb, Nix, Drake, all of them. Yeah. We want to play for that guy. I mean, if we can play for one guy, we want it to be that guy, O'Connell, and here's why. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that plays into Vikings side here, man. So I think it can happen. I don't have any inside dope on this one, but I don't either. I wish I did.
Well, it's a weird thing to me, though, kind of putting it out there, and I totally get it. The idea, maybe it's through his agent, that he wanted to link up with a playoff contender. But really, when you look at Sam Darnold and part of the good part about what he's doing with us is the chance to lift off a new platform. He is going to get potentially a multi-year deal this offseason that's going to garner more cash maybe than what the Vikings want to pay. But part of that process of him coming to Minnesota was him sitting behind Purdy with Shanahan and the Niners for an entire season. And he got the chance to see a winning operation. Of course, that there's work and there's benefits to that. Goes to a Super Bowl. But I'm just curious where his head's at in terms of what his expectations are. Because really, he needs a full reboot of some sort. And Kevin O'Connell, is certainly earning respect as a guy that puts good quarterbacks on the field.
Right.
But if he thinks, for instance, he's just an injury away from Baltimore from being the guy, or even in this case, knowing that J.J. McCarthy is certainly the future plan, I'm just curious where his headspace is at in terms of where that reboot or how that reboot takes place. There has to be a kind of a humbling start over type of thought in his head.
With Sam?
With Daniel Jones.
Oh, yeah, but you're looking at the Vikings situation.
Like, I can't see Daniel Jones coming here and the idea that he's going to compete for the starting job in 2025. Like, I can't envision that being part of the conversation.
If he signs here, is it going to be more than a year, you think?
Well, if I'm guessing here, there may be one team in the National Football League who would give Daniel Jones a starting job right now, and that would be the Las Vegas Raiders. And A, that's what the Raiders do. B, they don't have any quarterbacks. Ain't nobody giving Daniel Jones a starting job.
I don't see Daniel Jones wanting to go play for the Raiders right now.
Well, but I wouldn't even put him as a backup. Like, I like Mullins as a backup. He's a practice squad guy for me here in Minnesota this year.
Mr. Third and Long.
Yeah. All right, good seeing you. And have a good Thanksgiving, okay?
Same to you.
Lavelle Neal III, columnist for the Star Tribune. Thank you, Al Reese. The Scribe is next.
Bear down.